Well, let's move on to kind of this concept of the dimensions of a network. So I kind of teed up this: if I knew X, I would do Y, and I would use Z system of it. There's a
Mhm.
concept that we're talking about in our shop called it's a the data maturity model, and this data maturity model has multiple dimensions to it. So oftentimes a data maturity model starts with, can you describe it? Um, so this describe phase, this D, the first D, is multiple data sources. And so in the network space, I hear I hear thrown around this provider data management, or PDM, and oftentimes it's described as a noun. I have a PDM, and what they're trying to say is I'm taking in multiple data sources and I'm trying to get uh, the best possible um, source of truth around a provider, and that's what a PDM is trying to do. The next phase is the second D, if you will, diagnose. So why do certain things change within that model? Um, is there aging out of clinicians? Are there different licensures that are coming up? Whatever's driving the changes. The third one would be, can I predict? Can I anticipate? Well, this is going to end up shaping this way or that way, and I need to be ready. So that third dimension is called prediction. So I've gone through, I can describe it, I can diagnose it, I can predict it. And then the fourth one would be, I can prescribe what I'm going to do next. I'm gonna add providers. I'm gonna shift my focus to this thing that I've just predicted, solving for this thing. And the last thing that I think is the missing link that these are the folks in our shop, and I think others in the industry that we talk to, is, can I implement it? Can I activate? So we call it activate. So that fifth dimension: describe, diagnose, predict, prescribe, activate. Can I actually do something about it? Seems to be the next frontier around data. Um, Health economics is a place you came out of, with one of the leading health economics teams in the country and the world, probably, over at United Optum. And I'd be really curious, how did you guys think about um, those later dimensions, and how were people talking about, boy, if we take it through all the way this prediction model, how do I prescribe and activate?
Yeah, for years the model was just build the broadest, most comprehensive network you can build, and then the migration really started to how do we leverage what we already know about all these members in order to predict who's going to be at what disease burden at what point in time and need what kind of care. And so a big effort the last couple of years is to apply advanced analytics and artificial intelligence and all the rest of it to try to understand that and be able to predict. I always say, skate to where the pucks go and not where the puck is right now, to use a hockey analogy. So that was really kind of the focus, the last couple of years, and continues to be the focus on, how do we really get precise about predicting, having the right data and being able to predict disease burden and then utilization of the network,
Hmm.
across all the different physician groups and specialties.
Yeah, I am sure anybody listening to this, and listening to you talk, um, they might be sitting in a plan right now that didn't have the heft of resources that a large organization like you came from. And so I'm really curious. I want to tee up the next section, and then I'd like to hear how you could see a regional plan, or a mid-sized risk-bearing entity, like a specialist, multi-specialty organization that's taking risk on contracts, how they might take a step forward. And the way I want to tee it up is, um, uh, farming, to pick an industry that is seemingly very different than healthcare, has really embraced this idea of tailoring the solution to a very small section of a problem. And when I say small section, I mean a small section of land. So there's this concept in farming that's come out that's called farming by the foot, and it's amazing to me. It's like an Internet of Things case study where these sensors are tracking the ability for a square foot of land to produce a desired outcome. And that square foot of land is tracked through large data, through a lot of sensors and things. But as the implements, the tractors with the nutritions and all of the things that go over this piece of land, sense this square foot and the needs that it has, it's placing those exact prescribed, tailored solutions to make the thing that they want to grow in that square foot flourish. So in networks, just to stretch the metaphor a little bit, the soil is kind of the network. It's like this big piece of land, and the seeds might be the members. And this tractor, the implements are the things that are part of this platform solution. Andros is part of that solution. There's other network lifecycle platform tools out there that need to work together in order to say, hey, there's a deficiency here in this little space, and we want to understand what that deficiency is or might be in the future, and we want to put a solution in place to help shore up the ability for that member to thrive as best they can with this network. So I'm curious, am I stretching the analogy too far? Is it hitting home to you? And B, how would you see a small farmer who can't afford the big tractor and all the tooling? Where do they start? How do they raise their awareness of what they can do with 100 acres versus these farms that own thousands of acres?
All right. Well, if I start talking too fast, it just means I'm excited. This topic kind of excites me. Then you got to just slow me down. I think the size of the organization and not having all the resources of a big Fortune 5 company to just develop any kind of solution, still powerful opportunity to address this space. When you think about the members that are served, and really all these organizations are sitting on a time machine. They can look back in time at the claims for all of these members over time. And you could plot out someone who has vascular disease today and go back 5 years in their history when they did not have vascular disease. You can see the markers of what happened over 5 years to understand, well, here's how they developed vascular disease. Once you train a model on that, now you can apply it to your entire population to say, if I understood these different markers and when they were going to hit, I can predict. I can't prevent the disease, but I can predict when the disease will hit. We also know that 90% of the spend in most organizations are around the top 12 chronic disease conditions. So, COPD, vascular disease, congestive heart failure, diabetes with complication, neuropathy as a result, and the comorbidities of these things. Once we understand that, now we can have a broad network for the 80 to 90% that everybody needs an annual care visit. Everybody needs to get to make sure that they're not falling into one of those buckets. But you can get tailored, surgical, focused on that 10% where it really matters. And so now if I understand that disease burden, I understand where it's going, I can pivot to provider utilization. And once I understand provider utilization, I can understand, well, what's the cost basis? What's the quality basis, right? I can start looking at the quadruple aim, which every organization's looking at, and figure out what levers do I want to start pulling to either shift members to a different provider that has higher quality, better access, or a better cost basis and gets to better outcomes. So, everything I'm describing, it's not that hard, right? And it doesn't require all the resources of a big organization. It just requires discipline and strategy to go after it. And I always say, maybe it's a bad analogy, but I always say, you can't eat the elephant whole. You got to eat it one bite at a time. And if you're going to eat it one bite at a time, start with the 10%, learn what you can from the 10%, start shifting on that. Make sure the 90% has their annual care visit and has a broad enough network to be able to access it. And then, focus where you can focus. And then you start whittling and you get better and you get better and you get more precise and more surgical. And all of a sudden you have something that is really refined, and then you can start playing with it.